Everyone has been an odd one out in their lives at some point. But I'm curious, have you ever found yourself standing opposite to a lot of people, a huge amount of people, huge number, who subscribe to one thought, and you dare to say what's on your mind, and you find yourself standing at the other end?
Interesting topic, Prenko. Thank you for inviting me. There is one that comes to my mind when I think about this, where I chose a completely different path against the conventional belief system. After my father's demise, this was many years ago, we are required to do an annual ritual. Specifically for Hindus, they need to go to a temple and a priest would lead a particular ritual. I do not know the details of it, but they lead you doing some customary things, which is like a spiritual practice to really remember your father and do something which is really good for his soul. I personally do not believe that, but since my mother insisted, every year I had to go and do this. After 3-4 years of doing this every year once, I noticed that the priest who's leading this, and it is not on a one-on-one capacity, it is done in a mass setup. Like there's a ton of people who actually have come to express their rituals to their loved ones. So it is done in a mass setup, and I did not see any sincerity and sacredness in the process. It was done in such a commercial manner that I lost interest in it, even though it meant something to people. And the consecutive year, I chose that I will not continue with this practice. I actually refused to go and do this when my mother wanted me to do. So my mom was extremely upset. She thought that I really didn't care about this particular ritual or for my dad. But I personally, being party to this process didn't make sense to me at all. So I refused to go to this annual practice of doing these rituals. I experienced a ton of criticism from my family, from my loved ones, well-meaning friends, a ton of criticism for sure. So, but now people understand my stance on that, and even if they did not understand it, I'm okay with it. But this was something that I can look back and say, I think it was kind of unconventional and going against the decision of what people conventionally follow, at least in the context of India.
Yes, as a Hindu myself, I do understand what kind of side eye that can get you. Hindu faith itself, I think, is very holistic, very logical, very explanatory in its approach. It comes from a perspective of wanting to understand things, or wanting to neatly tie up the ends. And, there are wonderful rituals that help you get closure. So, I appreciate all of that, and I subscribe to it. But I do believe there is, like you said, a wrongfully commercialized aspect to it. We do Pitra Paksh here annually for our ancestors, people who've passed away. We make food, we put it out we offer it, to the crows, pigeons, and other animals. And that's the offering we make. But my advantage lies in the fact that I have a Kul Pandit, which is our family Pandit, or it's better to say a Kul Pandit, really, of the entire Kul, who assists us or who guides us through these processes. And I have active participation in that. So there's authenticity. There's no forced aspect to this, and we understand what we're doing. So I think people have a right to decide how they honor people who, matter to them, and how to pray for them, how to, like I said, honor them. And I think you made a good call. Kudos, because I know exactly what that must have felt like.
For a minute, while I was listening to it, I thought you were mentioning a very cool Pandit in your family, somebody with COOL. And then I noticed that is the Kul Pandit. So, but yeah, so what's it for you? You didn't share what is something that you did which is completely against the society, a decision which was unconventional.
Well, I have a couple. The first was when I was in 7th, 8th grade. I actually, there was an essay on freedom fighters of India. And Basically everybody talked about Mahatma Gandhi and how great he was, but I didn't like him very much. I don't like him very much now either. So I went ahead and I gave a 4-minute, very targeted speech on why I don't like him. I feel that I feel that class. Another place I find myself standing at the opposite end of a large group of people is, the entire wokeism ideology. Yeah, just doesn't do it for me. And I'm surrounded by that crowd, unfortunately. The double hit is when, you look at the other end, which is the ultra right or the traditionalist or the orthodox. And honestly, I just don't fit in there either. So it wasn't always like this. I used to be a person who used to adjust to people's opinions because I didn't like the chaos that followed, and also because I didn't have any opinions at all. I just wasn't interested in gaining that kind of knowledge or any knowledge. I was just flowing along. But I realized that with experiences, and as I grew up, because this was back when I was in my later teens, when I was a kid, as I grew up, I realized I can't keep myself silent about some things. I just can't help it. I had to voice some opinions. And when I did, I found myself at loggerheads with nearly everyone around me. People try to fit you in templates. You don't have to fit in those templates. My experience doesn't let me. My learnings don't let me. So even in my immediate surroundings, I find myself disagreeing with people all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on this because I don't like choosing extremes. I like choosing what works and what creates results. And so often people want to categorize me in one side or the other, and I'm neither. Like, I know that when it comes to political arena, that it's you have this choice or this choice. The other choices are just there for posterity purposes and basically will not win, will not take over. And the system itself just doesn't work as intended. And I remember during the whole heightened racial issues coming up during COVID season, I did an interview with one of my coaches. And people were like, well, which side is she on? And I'm like, neither, because y'all are messed up. And people just have a very hard time with that. And this is even when I'm coaching friends, and let's say those friends have a fallout. I won't disclose any sensitive information between either party, but they will come to me for advice. And yes, I will coach them. But then if one friend finds out, which I'm very transparent on, like, hey, I'm still talking with this person, then they get really pissed off. And I'm like, listen, you both are working through stuff. You both made your choices. I am here to support you both, but I'm not going to give any information between you two besides that this is happening. That's it. But that is something that, honestly ruffles feathers. And actually, one friend that I spoke with recently heard me on this, understood that, hey, I love both of you. Why are you having me choose? It's like having a parent choose a child. And she got it. And so, yeah, we're still good friends now. So that's kind of a stance that people don't like or don't understand.
Sure thing. I have been in situations like that. If it was a situation that I couldn't avoid, then what I would do is address it. If there's an elephant in the room, I talk about it. What you're doing is making me feel uncomfortable, or what you're doing is really hurtful to me. And this is what I'm going to do about it. I never let things just sit there unresolved. In most cases, they resolve themselves. But I avoid being in environments where I have to be that kind of person. So it has happened. and I push back. But for the most part, I try and not be in environments that are going to be like that. If I go for an interview for a job and I walk in and I see people are uptight, stuck up, afraid, conformist, like if everyone is wearing a black t-shirt, I'm like, it's a cult. Walk out. But I'm just being funny here. But yeah, that's basically what I try to do. Filter out by just not getting into situations like that in the first place. I must also admit that I have not always been good at that. At some point in my life, I was also conformist. I also tried to please. I also tried to say things that make everyone else comfortable, even if it meant that I was not comfortable. And I've been that person. With time, I'm grateful that time has taken that away from me because it was a burden. It was not nice being that guy.